Well, hey kids, it's story time. Come on over.
Are you guys ready for a story tonight?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Well, I think that we were on David and Goliath. Let's see. Okay.
Can we read out of your Bible tonight?
Sure, what would you like to read?
Just open it.
Just anything?
Open it?
Just open it and read.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay, then. Let's see. Here we go. Regulations about mildew.
Ooh.
Okay, here we go. If anything is contaminated with mildew, any woolen or linen clothing or any leather or anything made of leather, and if it's greenish or reddish.
Ew. Can we please read something else?
What's mildew?
Well, it's kind of like mold, that gross stuff that just kind of grows when something's wet. So, all right, I think reading something else is a good idea. Let's see, here we go again. Okay, here we go. This looks good. Dogs have surrounded me. A band of evil men has encircled me.
I'm scared. Can we read it out of my Bible?
That's a good idea.
Sure.
What should we read?
Jonah and the whale.
Oh, Jonah and the whale?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay, let's see. Jonah goes to Nineveh. God said to Jonah, I have a little task. Get up and go to Nineveh and do what I ask. The people there are wicked, so tell them to obey. But Jonah got on board a ship and sailed the other way. Uh-oh, Jonah, you better go to Nineveh.
Thank you, Berta family. That reminds me of some younger days with our kids. And, as we dive into all of these different questions that we might have about the Bible and about what it means to live a Jesus lifestyle, you might have a lot of questions about things like the Old Testament, about mildew, about bands of wild dogs surrounding me and how that must feel and all that. And you may ask that question, how am I supposed to understand all of this? How am I supposed to understand the Old Testament? And I dare say you might ask somewhat of a different question, why would I want to? Given what I've read before, some of you may have started out. How many of you ever started out reading the Old Testament? You don't have to raise your hands high, just like this high. And got to, say, Leviticus or Numbers and just said, oh, forget this. How many of you have done that? Okay, there's a few hands going up there. It's understandable because you get into all those regulations, you think, what is he talking about? Why on earth would we want to see this? And, when our kids, younger, we use that same Bible, and what a wonderful thing to be able to hear that story about Jonah and the whale. God said to Jonah, have a little task. Get up and go to Nineveh and do what you ask. I read the story a lot over years, and we all memorize those things. And whether it was that or David and Goliath or something about Abraham and Sarah or Noah and the ark, of course, they're our favorites, and they were a lot of fun. And, we had read those through the years. And recently, my oldest is 13, Becca, and Jacob's 12, and our youngest is 8. And I thought, you know what? Time to expand their horizons a little bit. And, they knew the stories out of the Rhyme Bible, knew a lot of the basics. And so I opened up to Psalms. And, my wife and I have read through the Psalms together over the years. I've read through them several times, but I've never read them through the eyes of an 8-year-old. And I was about to. Psalm 1, wonderful psalm. Oh, the joys of those who do not follow the advice of the wicked or stand around with sinners or join with mockers, but they delight in the law of the Lord, meditating on it day and night. They're like trees planted along the riverbank, bearing fruit in each season. You know, they can get that. It's kind of neat. Well, we were going to get through the whole Psalms this summer, and so we said, oh, okay, let's read number 2. And so my youngest read this psalm, Psalm 2, and it starts out like this. Why are the nations so angry? Why do they waste their time in futile plans? I mean, this is the easy version, right? The kings of the earth prepare for battles. The ruler plot together against the Lord. This is our bedtime routine, right? Good night. And so the next, we got through that one. I thought, oh boy. And then Psalm 3 kind of capped it off for us. Starts out, they're all in their pajamas, waiting for this nice little message to get them on to bed. Oh Lord, I have so many enemies, so many are against me, so many are saying God will never rescue him. Good night, sweet. Now, there's some depth there. There's some really good stuff. But, the next night, we went right to Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, okay? And we decided that we are just going to skip, some of those places because they're not quite ready to dive in that deep. It was simpler. And it would be so much simpler if we could just stick with the stories of Adam and Eve, of Noah and the ark, of Abraham and Sarah, of Moses, of David and Goliath, of Jonah and the whale. And, we're meant to get that, and we're meant to dive in deeper than simply reading a rhyme. But there's so much more. There's so much more. Even in the Psalms that I read, there's passion there, there's depth, there's pain, there's God, what are you going to do about these enemies? What are you going to do in life? How are you going to rescue this world that is in such horrible shape? Even then. And what you'll find, if you're willing to dig, is some of those answers. What's God up to? I'm going to direct you to the back of your bulletin, and you may be one of those that loves to fill these out, and I got to admit, I am too. But what I don't like to do is to speak from them, generally speaking. So I don't want to go the whole time trying to remember if I filled in a blank. So we're just going to do it all at once. All right? So hey, it's easy, right? But I'll talk about each point as we go through. But you'll have your little notes here and can write at your heart's content about other things. In the Old Testament, when I say Old Testament, I'm talking about the first 39 books of this book that we know as the Bible. This Old Testament is what the Jews called their Bible. This was referred to as the Holy Scriptures. In fact, when Jesus and later the apostles like Paul and Peter and the others referred to the Scriptures, guess what they were talking about? What we call the Old Testament. So, in the Old Testament, we hear God say, I will. I will rescue my people. I will make a difference in this world. I will do this and this. I will fulfill my promises. I will. I will. And in the Old Testament, we're invited to get to know those promises of God. You get to know what God said to Abraham and what he meant when he said, I will bless you. I will make of you a great nation, and all nations of the world will be blessed. You get to know those promises. And you get to know that when God says that he's going to deliver us from our enemies, that he's not talking about some worldly enemy, that he's talking about the devil, that he's talking about sin. He will deliver us. I will deliver you. And there's this amazing cycle that is repeated again and again and again in the Old Testament that's very helpful if you can read, as you read through the Old Testament, and really even the New, but particularly the Old. And as you think about your own life, what you see is this cycle. And it starts with Adam and Eve in the garden. Here they're having this, who could ask for more than what they got? But then we have this eating of the fruit, this disobedience, and so we have sin. And we see a lot of sin in the Old Testament. One time after another, we see people falling short. And this isn't just, of the overzealous, over high expectation dad and mom. This is, killing other people and worshiping other gods. They are completely fallen away. So we have this sin. But we also see that God is not indifferent to that. God isn't that hands-off parent that sits back and says, oh, kids will be kids, just let them go. Let them do their thing. No, God is passionate. He cares deeply about what we do and what we say. And so there's this judgment. So we have sin, and when there's sin, God brings judgment. But after that judgment, God doesn't leave us there wallowing in our sin and in the pain of the judgment we receive from Him. He lifts us up. And the word we use for that is grace. He restores people to that relationship with Him. He restores them to that relationship with one another. Oh, Old Testament time, it may be years in this cycle, but it happens. About it, that's really how God deals with us today. There's sin, there's judgment, and there's grace. So, in the Old Testament, God says, I will. In the New Testament, what we see God saying is, I have. I have now fulfilled my promise to you. I have, in the person of Jesus Christ, done all these promises I made in the Old Testament, they're fulfilled in Jesus. And in the Old Testament, we're invited to know those promises. In the New Testament, that shifts, and we get to know the person of Jesus, the fulfillment of all those promises. So there you go. You got your list done. So, fulfillment of those promises. I want to read to you from Matthew chapter 5. And this is, Jesus is talking to this group of people. And it's part of the Sermon on the Mount. And he is trying to get across to these folks that he didn't come to throw the first half of this book out. Because what you'll see is when he says the law of Moses and the writings, the law of Moses was the first 5 books of the Bible. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. He says, I didn't come to throw those out. And all the prophets, Isaiah, Jeremiah, all those, I didn't come to toss those out. Listen to what he says. Don't misunderstand why I've come. I did not come to abolish the law of Moses or the writings of the prophets. No, I came to accomplish their purpose. I have come to fulfill it all. So, that is some of the best news we could ever have. He's saying, I am the fulfillment. As you read through the Old Testament, I'm the fulfillment of all these promises, all these stories. I'm the hero. I'm the rescuer. And I think it's very logical to ask yourself. You think, okay, that's fine, Pastor Steve, but still, I'm getting an idea of why to read the Old Testament, but how? How am I supposed to do this? Because even in Jesus' day, you had these experts in the Scriptures who memorized huge parts of them. They would memorize the whole prophets, all the prophets and all the books of Moses. And they were standing next to Jesus and listening to Jesus preach this sermon, and they didn't get it. They didn't get the promises of God. I mean, how can you expect me as somebody who's, well, I'm just not at that level, expect to understand what they're talking about? When I was a kid, well, I guess it's more middle school, about middle school age, I read through a mystery novel, and I loved it. It was awesome. And I got to the end, and it was just this fabulous ending and completely unexpected. And so after reading it, I thought, I've got to read this again. Because I wanted to see how things unfolded through the book again. And after I got through it the second time, I said, never again. And so every mystery book that I've read ever since then, I always start with the last chapter. Now, hear me out. Because I enjoy it so much more now, because I'll read that last chapter, I'll hear what's happened. I'll see, who did it, or how the story resolves itself. Because then, when I go back to the first chapter, as from sentence 1 in that first chapter, I'm looking at all those characters differently. I know who did it. And if they're on that first page, I know it, and I can watch them really closely. And I can admire the work of the detective, whoever else is figuring out this mystery, and think, they're putting this and this together. See? it's fun. I share that because, in a way, yes, the Pharisees, yes, all those teachers of the law knew this Old Testament backwards and forwards. But you have the advantage of having read the last chapter. You have the advantage of knowing Jesus and being able to read now the Old Testament in light of what you know. That you know that all these promises that are being made are fulfilled in Jesus. When Jesus was walking around, when he's preaching the sermon, there was a lot of debate. Okay, well, how exactly is God going to do this? But you don't have to worry about that. So you've read the last chapter, and you have the gift of the Holy Spirit, which will help you see that when God says to Abraham, I will bless you, and I will bless all nations through you, you can say with confidence, that's Jesus. That blessing to all nations, that's going to be Jesus. You see? You are so far ahead of all those experts all those years ago. And I want you to check out this nice little blob here on the thing. Just watch it closely. I'm not going to hypnotize you or anything, don't worry. But it will soon begin to move. When you're new to the Old Testament, a lot of this, as you're reading through, even parts of Genesis, as you get into just all the different parts, you read the prophecies and you read all the prophets and some of the history, and you might think, what is going on here? How am I ever supposed to get a clear picture of what God's up to? But the beauty is that as you dive in, as you read it through the first time, as you study a bit, as you join with others, maybe in a small group or in Crossways or some other study off campus with another church even, as you dive in, things will begin to get a little more clear. You see, God wants you to read this book so that you can know Him better, but more importantly, that you can know Jesus better. And what you'll see is that the deeper you go, the more clearly you'll see Jesus. Still a shadow in the Old Testament. Jesus isn't named. We don't see the name Jesus anywhere in the Old Testament that says, this is the one. And by the way, in case you didn't notice, he wears cargo shorts. I know. But, Jesus was with it. He was always where he needed to. But you will see Jesus more clearly as you read this book. That's the why. That's the why you should. I've been studying this stuff for a long time. I've read through the Old Testament several times. I've studied it. I've taught it. And I've learned a lot through all of that. But I will tell you, there's still plenty of parts I don't quite get. That's just the reality. As you study, you're just going to figure out that there's, things you're just not going to understand until you're up with Jesus in heaven. However, that being said, the more that I've studied, especially when I've studied with other people, that is such a key, I got to tell you. When they start sharing their comments, when I start sharing with them, I begin to see things that I have read a dozen times. I see something new. I see Jesus more clearly. I see God's passion, His love, His grace. It just, things that I never thought would move me in the Old Testament, all of a sudden I'm just, oh, wow, look what God's doing here. Look what He's doing. We feel that this is so important that all of you have a chance to experience this, that next fall, starting in September 15th, is our big kickoff day. We are going to be encouraging you to participate with us in a 31-week sermon series called The Story. And a good chunk of that is Old Testament. And we will have lots of information. We'll have information on the screen, and we'll have a big kickoff for that. But I just give this teaser because the reason we want to do this is that so often we just skip right to the Gospels, and we miss so much depth. We miss so much of what God had been up to all these generations. We miss the nature of God, the beauty of His love for us, and His passion. And so we're going to invite you to read along. Basically about 12 pages a week, and it's hitting the major themes all the way through the Old Testament and into the New. If you're able to do that with us, I think you'll see that God has this grand plan, not only for this world, but for your life. This grand design in saying, I will, and then I have done this in Jesus, and that this is for the world, and that it's for you.